Let's talk about censorship for a moment. I'm fascinated by censorship, and I think I always have been. It's funny, I just watched the first half of Panic in Needle Park with Al Pacino after having just watched the 3 Godfather movies for the first time in my life last week. I thought, I want to see something else he was in. I want to see the movie before The Godfather that he was in. It's rated PG, Panic in Needle Park. In this movie, they're constantly showing people shoot up heroin. Constantly, like they show the needle go in. Now I'm sure they could have been water. I don't know what they were, but they showed the needles going in. It's very graphic to see that, and the blood and all that stuff. People are constantly using heroin and other drugs. There is constant talk about prostitution. They show prostitutes. Then there's topless scenes. And that's just the first half of the movie. And there's been already 5 uses of, the F word already in the first half of this movie from 1971 that's rated PG. Can you imagine today in 2018 a movie rated PG-13, and in the first half of the movie the F word's used 5 times. There's topless women, there's people shooting up heroin. That's hilarious that could be in a PG rated movie back then. That's my point. That's a perfect icebreaker. When I was making this video, I didn't know that I was going to watch that video and have that experience and realize it's funny how censorship changes. And what ultimately inspired this video, comedians riding in cars, getting coffee, whatever, Jerry Seinfeld on Netflix. So he was talking with, I believe it was Howard Stern, and they were talking about how censorship has changed over the decades. How it used to be more based on conservative thought, that if you have swearing or nudity or violence, things that more so go against the church, then we need to censor that. It's funny, Lenny Bruce, he was arrested back in the 50s for his stand-up comedy because he had profanity in his act, and he got arrested multiple times for this, And now that's the norm. It's the norm to just, the whole thing is just F words, and then very explicit. Yeah, that's the norm. That's what we expect now. When we see if we don't see that, then we see Brian Regan, it's like, oh, this is clean, right? If it's not filthy, then it's kind of the exception of the rule, right? That's how censorship was, but that's different now because so many people talk that way. So many people curse all the time. It's so normal that it's not anything jarring anymore. We're used to it. So now that American culture especially has become accustomed to all of that used to be filth decades ago, well, perhaps society still has a hole, a need in them, that there still needs to be something that's offensive. So now, instead of worrying about conservative values being offended, we're now on the other side. We went from conservative concern now to liberal concern. And you say, "What? Come on, Nick, what do you mean? Liberals get offended?" Oh, right, Nick. Yes, liberals get offended. And it's not through profanity or nudity or violence. Yes, because there's a lot of words you can't say now that you used to be able to say. Right? They're not profanity, but they're offensive. They're bigoted. They're homophobic. They used to be in movies. Even The Godfather, back in the early 70s, they pretty much had all of these things. You can't say them now, because you have to say little person. That's what you have to say. Now you must say, there's almost like you have to say African American now, even though I've made videos already talking about this, and everyone who's coming back that is African American says, no, just call me black. That's cool with me. So here's another thing that's so funny. It's so funny. So I made a video talking about why is it that so often people who are Jewish are good at handling money. And I explain how over history, Jewish people were persecuted to the point they had to find creative ways to make and save money. And so naturally, it makes sense that often they had those skills. My grandfather was apparently half Sephardic Jewish, according to mom's MyHeritage DNA test. And he was the person, other than my mom, that I know that was the most obsessed with saving and investing money. He's the one person in my life. Everyone else in my family, no, that wasn't something they were concerned about. What's funny about that video is from time to time I'll have someone comment and they'll say, as far as the video that goes that says that, why is it that Jewish people are so often good with money? That's the video. And people will comment and say, that's racist. I love, and here's my favorite thing. I comment back and I say, are you Jewish? And most recently this happened this week and the person responded back, well, what does that matter? And here's what it matters. It matters because Jewish people have actually commented on that post and taught me exactly why Jewish people are so good with money. And they backed up the thing about throughout history they've had what I already said. I learned from people who are definitely more Jewish than I am why it is. I've not had one Jewish person say, that's offensive. You shouldn't generalize that Jewish people are better with money. You shouldn't do that. Well, what I've learned from people who are actually Jewish, it's almost, if anything, it was going to be offensive, it's the fact that I would deny that. Because again, they, with their history, they were in that situation. Now, the whole point of why I'm bringing this up is because that kind of falls more on that liberal side of being vulgar or offensive. Because everything's about being politically correct. That's the whole point. How do you offend someone who's liberal? By saying something that's not politically correct. And you can, as far as profanity, nudity, violence, they're not worried about that like the Republicans, conservatives, religious groups. That's the stuff they're still worried about. But instead, now you have to worry about not offending the more liberal mindset. So if you want to curse, that's fine. You do whatever you want to. It's all about freedom now, right? But freedom except for you can't say anything at all that remotely sounds like you're making a slur against any particular group of people. The moment that you do that, that is what's vulgar. That is profanity now. Forget about curse words. Forget about F words, whatever it is. It's about being politically correct. That is where we are with censorship now. Those are the things you can't say. They'll see GD uncensored on TV now, like it's no big deal. But you can't say lots of words. For example, you have to say little person. So what are your thoughts on that? Isn't that fascinating when you hear that out loud? Like, wow, censorship really has changed, and now we're worried about not offending liberal side as compared to before we were so worried about conservative side when they would throw you in jail for being a stand-up comedy who said the F word on stage. Fathom that, leave a comment.